My name is Peter Chabris, and this is my KW story.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's My KW Story. We've got Peter Chabris here, who is KWU Master Faculty, one of our amazing Leverage Series instructors, team owner, Market Center investor, a man that wears many, many hats through his journey with Keller Williams, and we're going to hear all about his story today. So, Peter, thank you so much for taking your time with us today. We know it's tough to fit things into schedules, and we really appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm thrilled to be here and to share a little bit of my story. Thanks, Liz.
Awesome. So let's just start at the beginning. Let's go back to when you joined Keller Williams. You joined in 2007. Can you tell
Yes,
us how you actually ended up here at Keller Williams back in 2007, what your journey looked like to get to that point?
sure. I got licensed in 2002 to do my own development stuff and wasn't very good at that. So I was just doing sales, kind of not really taking responsibility for my life. In 2005, a book came out called The Millionaire Real Estate Agent. I read it and thought I could be the first guy to do that in Cincinnati. And so I started trying to build a real estate sales team at the local brokerage that I was with, local independent, and kept kind of bumping my head up against walls there. And so in 2007, I figured, well, if I want to build a sales team, this book is probably the top of the iceberg, and all the other stuff and the system that supports this concept, this idea, is probably the best place to do that, is the place that wrote the book. And so I switched to Keller Williams in 2007.
That's fantastic. That weird model book, right? MREA. It's just so funny how that seems to resonate with us.
That's
So once you joined Keller Williams 2007, what did your business actually look like at that time? Just to give people some perspective.
oh, that's a
Size, units, team size, anything
not
like that.
much. I mean, I think I was doing maybe two or three transactions a month. I had a part-time assistant. I think I had a buyer's agent. Really, I was hiring them more out of a place of ego than in a place of necessity. I think sometimes a lot of people see big teams and equate the concept of team with success and go out to pursue that team model before it's really necessary. And so they wind up satisfying their ego, but compromise their profitability and add complexity to their business where it's not necessary. And that was certainly the case with me when I got started.
Not uncommon, unfortunately. We do see that a lot. And somehow yet we all learn from that experience. Gary always says, if you're not failing, I feel bad for you because it means you're not going forward. And a lot of us learn through some failures.
That is
So
true.
that was 2007. You joined Keller Williams. You were doing probably, like you said, 2 to 3 transactions a month, small team.
Hmm.
Where did your journey take you over the next several years? What did it look like in your world?
Well, the first thing that happened, Liz, was within 2 weeks of joining Keller Williams, there was a class that was offered by the region, the Ohio Valley region, and that class was called Quantum Leap. And as you know, it was written by Gary Keller, and it was almost kind of like a playbook for how to live a big life. And I'd been at the company for less than 2 weeks. I went to this thing. It was a 2-day class by then, taught by Nikki Ubaldini. And for a guy that was not taking responsibility for his life, felt very entitled and believed he was special, that course really kind of hit me square in the chest. I remember leaving the first day in tears driving home, and leaving the second day just angry at how I had not done my life right for the first, what was that, maybe 33 or 34 years that I'd been on this planet. And that was really transformational. That's when I realized, oh, hang on a second, there is a different way to play the game of life. And I'm at a place that has kind of like these playbooks for life and for business. So I better start drinking really fast because I'm almost halfway through my life and I need to like play this game a lot differently if I'm going to honor my marriage, be a good dad, and enjoy my time on this planet instead of just kind of like living a half-baked life, which I realized that's exactly what I had been doing at that point. So that was really a transformational moment, and I started just consuming all of the information and implementing as fast as I could all this information, all of these ideas, all these best practices, all these models, all these systems. And one that really resonated with me was there was a book that came out called Internet Lead Generation, like 2007, maybe. And I just implemented the whole thing, soup to nuts. And we started growing a pretty strong internet lead business in Cincinnati. I'm not from Cincinnati originally, so this made a lot of sense to me. I didn't have a sphere. And then the Great Recession happened. And there was the Shift book that was written by Gary to talk about how to deal with a really difficult market, a contracting market, a changing market. And Tony DeCello, who was kind of like one of the luminaries of Keller Williams at the time, led a Shift tour where he would go to different Keller Williams regions and interview agents that were succeeding in a contracting market. And I was lucky enough to be the panelist, and my job was to talk about internet lead generation. And after the panel, I was really impressed by him, and I asked him to coach me, and he said no. And I asked again, and I think I called him every 2 weeks for a couple months until finally he said yes. I think
That
Linda
sounds a lot like Tony.
Yeah,
That sounds on track for Tony.
that was a test, I'm pretty sure. And I was way below, he was way above my pay grade, and I was way below the kind of people that he coached. But I guess I was persistent enough that he felt guilty and took me on. So, and that was an accelerator. There are people in your lives in your life that just, and in the one thing Gary talks about, the first domino, if you've read that book, and Tony was my first domino. I still get emotional talking about that relationship after all these years. But he changed. He coached to the business, but what he was really doing was he was coaching to me, and really like unclogging or the horrible thinking in my head, and um, just teaching me so many lessons about, or enabling me to be a better version of myself, and by extension, my business. And so during the Great Recession, which, as you know, the market was contracting 20 or 30% per year between price and units sold, we were growing about 25 to 30% per year. When we first got started, he said, let's set a 5-year goal. And my 5-year goal was to be the top sales team in Cincinnati in 5 years. We actually hit it in 4. And one of them is
How long did it
because
take you to hit it?
4 years.
4 years, not bad.
Yeah. So, and I credit that to Tony, really more to myself. He was just incredible at removing all the bad thinking and empowering me to believe in myself, and just tweaking my mindset in all these different ways where I'd really been the biggest obstacle in my own way my entire life. And then he was also good at kind of like channeling my strengths and kind of prodding my fire, which is not hard to do. But he was good at
A good coach doesn't always tell you things you like to hear. They
Oh,
kind of leave you a little infuriated sometimes at the end of that 30-minute call. In a
yeah,
good way.
we had many, many tough conversations over the course of that time together. So let's see. So the recession ended.
Let's jump to 2015. So you guys were growing rapidly.
Yeah,
And you had built, right? You said you weren't from Cincinnati. You had leaned into internet lead generation at a high level.
yeah,
And that was kind of carrying you for what, 5, 6, 7 years. And then you get to 2015. What
yeah.
happens then?
So it was the core of our business was expireds and internet lead gen. And the reason that was because I didn't have a sphere. And the second one is I am a transactional personality, behavioral style naturally. And so those two lead sources felt right to me, right? And in 2015, our business didn't grow, didn't outpace the growth of the market. And so I was disappointed, and we can say upset by that. And so Tony had said something like, is this the year you finally decide to start calling your sphere? So I said, yeah, fine. I'll call my stupid sphere. We'll see if there's anything to this. I'll prove you wrong. There's no value in calling your sphere. So very quickly, when I was calling my sphere, looking for referrals, it was clear I had a bigger problem. And that was I hadn't earned their referrals because their experience working with our sales team or with me directly was not great during the Great Recession. And, Liz, that's because my love language is performance, but that isn't necessarily everybody else's love language. And so I was outperforming the market for my clients, but I wasn't doing it in a way that felt good for them. So I realized we didn't have a sphere problem. Well, we did have a sphere problem, but the real problem that we had was we had a customer experience problem, and we need to fix that before we started asking for referrals from our sphere.
At the
So,
time that you came to that realization, so 2015, you'd been in business a long time. You'd been in
Yeah.
Keller Williams 7 years, and your
Mhm.
team had grown substantially. What did your business look like at this time when you decided to make this switch to lean into customer service experience and your SOI?
Great question. 192 units was closed units that year. The year preceding had been 191. So we were flat and the market had grown, and that's why I was pissed. And so 2016 was all about overhauling our customer's experience, the journey our customer had with us, and marketing to and communicating with our spheres. We didn't do anything else. That was all we focused on for 2016. In 2016, we closed 256 transactions, and that equaled another $480,000 in GCI. And what was really exciting about that was we did it without hiring any more salespeople. Actually, we did it with two less salespeople, and we didn't spend one more dollar on advertising. So all of a sudden, the business became profoundly more profitable as well. So I guess Tony was right and I was wrong.
So it's amazing how that happens when you listen to your coach, things go in your favor. It's super
Yeah,
weird.
really strange. It might be a theme there. Um, and that was so profound. It was like such um, a moment of awareness for me that I wound up writing a group coaching program for MAPS, the coaching arm of Keller Williams, where I taught agents for about 2 years how to provide a great customer experience at scale, how to systemize a great customer experience.
That's awesome, right? And if you look at that, right, we all kind of learn from our mistakes through business. And we were at family reunion last week, and Rory Vaden of Brand Builders said something. He said, "You are best positioned to help the person that you once were."
That's
And I
exactly.
think that's super important to see and to kind of highlight in your story right here of you didn't embrace sphere of influence. You didn't embrace customer service. You're naturally poised as a transactional type of personality, which I totally understand. Built my business on expireds and internet lead generation. And when you finally leaned into it, profitability soared, your business became more stable. And that actually, in a process of what, 2 years, afforded you the right to take your next step. So let's talk about what your next step was in 2017.
So our next step was launching a market center, Keller Williams franchise. So up until that point, I had been trying to. It's funny, two things happened at the same time, Liz. One was if you're familiar with the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book, there's sort of these idea of different levels of business. The sixth level is where the lead agent, the mega, so to speak, steps out of production and somebody else takes over the responsibility of taking listings. And I had been trying to find that listing specialist in our business for about 3 years and had failed 4 times at hiring the right person. And so in 2016, 2017, I had just hired attempt to number 5. And at the same time, the region said, okay, it's time to do this if we're going to do this. And so concurrently, I was releasing releasing the responsibility of production, which, as you know, drives the profitability of these sales teams, and launching a market center at the exact same time, which was a lot. But ultimately, it was the push that I needed to finally step out of production and hand that over to somebody else and entrust them to drive the train in my absence. And so we launched a market center in 2017.
That's fantastic. For anybody watching, I don't necessarily recommend taking Peter's path of doing those two things at the same time. Maybe try to stagger those out a little bit. That's a heavy lift, right? Like those are big things. And again, we learn from our mistakes, and sometimes we learn from other people's on there.
Yep.
So launching a market center. So now you've got huge team. You've
Yep.
got massive production, leaning into profitability, leaning into the models, listening to what your coach told you to do in the first place. You've now launched a market center. You're OP of a market center. How long do you continue in that role of OP in the market center?
Yeah. I lasted 3 years. I think ultimately, Liz, I identified that it was not for me. I was pretty good at it, but I wasn't great at it, and I knew that there were people better than me at it, and I knew I was more in my strength zone, growing my sales team. And so one of my investors is a very talented woman who had been in leadership roles before in Keller Williams Market Centers, Tara Smith. And so we had an agreement that if she could do a couple things to grow the market center, that she would earn the right to be the new franchisee, what we call our operating partner or operating principal. And so if you know Tara, she does what she's going to do, what she sets out to do. So she did what she set out to do. And I happily transferred the leadership role of the market center. And so I stepped out of the OP role and became an investor. So I'm still a majority shareholder of the company, but my job really is just to support her, mentor agents when they need assistance, teach classes there, try and be something of a role model for agents that aspire to build bigger businesses. And that's when I reverted back just to my sales team. And I should say, there's always an opportunity to learn from whatever we do in our lives. And the management and leadership skills that you need for a sales team are very different than the management and leadership skills that you need for a market center. And I'll always be grateful for that time in my life, as stressful as it was, because when you enter the world of leadership at Keller Williams, which is the market center side of things, the brokerage side of things, you are really turned on to a whole different world around attraction and leadership and management in a way that you're not going to find in production or in organizations around production. And that all those skills and mindset can translate back to running a more scalable sales team model. Does that make sense?
I think that's the key word that you used there, a more scalable sales team model. Because when we take the approach of true leadership at such a large scale as a market center, and then we apply that type of skill set, those concepts, and that behavior to a team, when we see people do that transition as you did of market center leadership back into their business, or market center leadership and then go launch a sales team, we see a lot of success there because they take those core business principles of leadership that they learned at the market center level there. And for those of you watching this video, by the way, you can all go take those trainings anyways. If you're not in market center leadership,
That's
you can absolutely attend to those things. So Peter, you are now, while your title may be CEO, you really act more as the chairman of the board for your team and as an advisor and an investor in your market centers. What does your kind of day-to-day look like there?
That's a great question. What's my day-to-day look like? Well, I spend a little more time on myself now than I used to, which I enjoy. When it comes to work, I spend most of my time with strategy, leading the leadership team at our real estate sales company. There's a lot of mentorship that's going on right now with my core leaders at our company and growing them more. I teach a lot at the sales team, at the market center, in the local community, outside of the community. I mean, Keller Williams faculty, that's one of the things that I enjoy doing. And I guess that's it. If you wanted to,
that's just it. That's just not a lot at all. And it's master faculty, investor in market center, chairman of the board for your business. It's light workload. Nothing.
I don't know. I'm happier now than I ever have been in the work that I do. I'm grateful for all of the things that I've learned to be at the place that I'm in. I think if you ask, let me answer that question a different way. What do I do now? What I do now is I pay forward all the lessons that I've learned at my 15-year run with this company, and I'm trying to do it at scale, as much as I can.
I like that. That's a good way to summarize it. So for those viewers that have watched this video, they're sitting here listening to it and going, this is great. I love Peter's story. Like, this is fantastic. What's the moral of the story, or the key point or takeaway that you would want people to get out of this who are listening to this story? Put it all together.
If I can just succinctly tie it up, I would say, Liz, that the most job number one in the pursuit of any form of success that you want in your life is to, number one, know yourself, and then consistently apply yourself to the strengths that you have.
I think that's a huge takeaway. Sometimes we try to be something else because our ego wants us to, right? Or because there's an opportunity. It doesn't necessarily mean it's the right opportunity for us, or that it's the right place for us to be. And leaning into who we are and knowing ourselves and And folks, you can use tools like the KPA. You can lean into your coach for advice on that and for consulting. And understanding those things is absolutely huge, because when we find ourselves in our strength zones, we thrive. That's
Yeah.
where we can run.
Can
And
I
that's
put an asterisk on that?
Yes.
Thrive in our strength zones when we consistently apply our strengths. If you don't consistently apply yourself, preferably to a proven system or model, you're not going to be really happy with the results. And I think a lot of times we forget that part of being successful is being consistent. Sometimes consistency is boring and sometimes consistency is gritty. But at the end of the day, I always tell people what makes a great business. A great business is just the consistent application of a proven system. That's all a business is. And then if you really want to be a fantastic business, you apply talented people to that, to the consistent application of a proven system. That to me is like the game. And if you play that game, you always win, right? It's actually not that complicated. Maybe that's why we get frustrated with it, because it's simple, but it's not easy. And so we try and complicate it to justify the lack of results and not just being consistent on the tasks that need to be done.
Great mentor who likes to wear a lot of black and has a mustache once said, there is great boredom in mastery.
Yeah, that's
Great
right.
boredom in mastery. And frequently when we hit the boredom phase, we look for something shiny and distracting and fun, as opposed to truly mastering and leaning into it.
That's right.
And I think that's right. That's a key point on there.
100%.
So, Peter, thank you for your time. This has been a fantastic story.
Thanks for
And
having me.
if anybody wants to say, thank you, Peter, how can they send you a referral, connect with you, learn more about you? How can we get people in touch?
Well, there's two places. You can always email me, peter@asktcg.com, which is for an acronym for the Chabris Group, TCG. The other is I have a website called lockboxcoaching.com. It's basically a video blog with weekly posts about tips and tricks and strategies for sales, for mindset, and for finance for realtors.
All right. That's that pay it forward part. I love it.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
we will drop those links for you all here so you can get in touch with Peter. And thank you all for watching this My KW story. We look forward to interviewing you again in the future, Peter, and we will see you all next time.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Liz.